Our next speaker is Billy Easton. He's the Executive Director for the Alliance for Quality Education in Albany, New York. Since 2005, Billy's been the Executive Director of AQE. He brings 30 years of experience in community and union organizing and a wealth of experience in strategy, media relations, politics, and legislative activity to his work at AQE. He provides significant leadership to organizing, policy, media relations, and strategic work to partner organizations. He's provided a major leadership role in campaigns to increase school funding and to prevent cuts, to win revenues through the millionaire's tax, to reform school discipline in order to reduce racial injustice in school suspensions, and to fight back against corporate reforms and testing in education. Billy is frequently quoted in statewide and local media outlets across the state. Policymakers recognize him for his policy expertise in issues relating to school finance and policy. In each of the past 2 years, he was selected by City and State magazine as a member of Albany's Power 100. He's here to speak to us tonight about school funding and economic inequality. Please welcome Billy Easton.
Thank you, and thanks to all of you for being here tonight. Give yourselves a big round of applause. I had to drive about an hour to get down here tonight from Albany, but the drive home's a lot closer because I live a couple blocks away right here in Lake Katrine. I voted the Crosby School on the school budgets. You can probably imagine how I always vote. And I used to substitute teach occasionally in the school district, in this school, many years ago. And I see a lot of friends in the auditorium here. I want to especially recognize one of your school board members who I've known for decades, Reverend Jim Childs. The governor has got a lot of crazy ideas on education. To begin with, he doesn't want to fund our schools. A lot of people ask me, where does the governor get some of his ideas? And you don't have to look very far past his campaign contributors to figure it out. There are a lot of billionaire hedge fund managers, some of whom are the wealthiest people in the world and had a big role in tanking Wall Street to tank the whole economy a few years ago. And they thought, well, we did good at that. Now let's take over schools. So they came up with a lot of talking points and policy ideas they given the governor. How can we run our schools more like they run their businesses? And they put $16 million in political donations and lobbying expenditures last year statewide, and now they're looking for the payback. Well, not a lot of good ideas, though. First off, the governor says money doesn't matter. It sure matters when he's asking them for campaign contributions, but it doesn't matter when it comes to educating our kids. And you know what? If anyone's confused about whether money matters, go to a wealthy school district like Scarsdale, and nobody there is confused that money matters to provide a fantastic education. So the governor's proposed a $1.1 billion school aid increase. Sounds like a lot of money. But there's 2.7 million school children in this state. It's not nearly enough. In fact, the Board of Regents, the highest policy-making body in education in the state, has said we need a $2 billion school aid increase. And in January, 87 members of the legislature signed a letter to the governor and stood up with us calling for a $2.2 billion school aid increase. And we need that money to be fairly distributed, so high-need districts like Kingston, like Ellenville, are getting the most, but that all districts are getting their fair share. In fact, right now, Kingston is one of 8 small cities where parents are suing the state for failing to fulfill its constitutional obligations. They were in court in Albany today. They were in court in Albany with that lawsuit. And that lawsuit is a follow-up on another lawsuit called the Campaign for Fiscal Equity, where parents from New York City sued. And the High Court ruled, in fact, the state was violating the Constitution, was not providing the resources necessary for every student to get what's guaranteed, which is called a sound basic education or a meaningful high school education. That's their constitutional right in New York, and the state's not fulfilling it. So that was a lawsuit that took a lot of time to get done, but in 2007, the legislature finally settled it, And they didn't just settle it for New York City, they settled it for every school district in the state. They said over a 4-year period, you need to give a $7 billion, that's with a B, not an M, $7 billion school aid increase over 4 years, targeting, and Dr. Padalino mentioned the foundation aid formula. That was the formula they put in place. If they use it, it works well. They don't use it. So what's the upshot? So for 2 years we were getting the money, we saw a lot of improvements in schools, and then the economy tanked, thanks to some of that Wall Street activity we talked about, and then they froze the funding, and then they made massive cuts. In fact, Andrew Cuomo came in his first year in office, he made $1.3 billion in cuts to school aid while cutting taxes on millionaires and billionaires by $2.5 billion. So it's all about your priorities. Our kids should come first. Right now, according to the State Education Department, the state owes our schools $4.9 billion in that funding for the foundation aid, the CFE funding. The same thing they're suing to get in court today in Albany. Plus, $1.1 billion in the gap elimination adjustment. Now, there's a flyer that you can get at the back table that sort of gives you the details on what's owed to districts here in Ulster County in both GEA and foundation aid. To be honest, there's a lot of push on the GEA, but for high-need districts like Kingston in particular, foundation aid will drive more money to your district, is more important, and for every district in Ulster County except for 2, foundation aid is better. Now, regardless, we need a mix of both because we need to help all districts. But we do need to prioritize the high-need ones. But the 1.1 is not even a real number that the governor's proposing. The 1.1 billion is not a real number because he's holding it hostage. Your superintendent and the superintendent of Saugerties have spoken out about this, appropriately so. And 1.1 our children are being held hostage. The governor's saying, I won't give you a penny, not 1 red cent, unless you agree to the changes I want to make to your schools. And I don't even want to call them reforms because a lot of them are really wrong-headed. You know, one of the reforms he's holding our school funding hostage is he wants to double down on testing. Governor says the teacher evaluation system is baloney. Well, if the teacher evaluation system is baloney, then Andrew Cuomo is Oscar Mayer. I want to remind you that Andrew Cuomo is the one who said, unless we get this teacher evaluation system, your schools won't get funded just a few years ago. He's the one that held our legislature and our students hostage then. And now he says it's baloney. Well, that's baloney. Our children's constitutional right to a sound basic education can't be held subject to anything at all. That's their right. If you want more teaching to the test, one way to get it is to have 50% of the teacher evaluation system tied to testing. It's a bad idea, and it will punish teachers who take on the hardest to teach kids. It will not drive the kind of educational outcomes we want. It's not real accountability. A couple other ideas he's tying it to, and I won't put all the details of them because I want to keep it short here, but he wants to drive more money to private schools. He wants to increase the number of privately run charter schools, which would take money out of regular public schools to fund them. He wants, in fact, districts that are focus or priority districts, he wants to make eligible for a state takeover where a private consultant could come in and become school czar and overrule the school board and the superintendent and make decisions that are not, where voters and parents and teachers are left out and principals are left out and school superintendents and school board members are left out. And all of this are the ideas, again, he's getting from the billionaire campaign contributors. So most important, though, is that's bad news, but the good news is you're all here tonight. And the good news is we can do something about it. Now the ball's in the legislature's court. The governor proposes, the legislature disposes. It's their job to decide. He's not the king of Albany, he's the governor. So he can't decide this by himself. So what needs to happen is this. A lot of times we despair that our voice doesn't matter. We can't do that. We can't give in to despair. We have to, everybody here tomorrow should call up your state legislators, and I don't care if there's someone who you voted for the last 10 elections or someone you voted against for the last 10 elections. Call them up and say, you have to say no to Governor Cuomo's education plan, and you have to put $2.2 billion in the budget. Call them out. And if they say to you, oh, I'm just a state legislator, say, what are you talking about? You're a state legislator, not just a state legislator. That's an excuse. You can't accept an excuse like that. You say, that's not good enough. I want you to go and fight, and I'm not going to accept it till you come back and tell me you delivered.
That's right.
When you go to work, your job is to get the job done. Their job is the same. You need to hold them to it. I want to point out Kat Fisher in the back there in the green t-shirt. Kat's right there. One thing you can do is on March 11th, you can sign up with Kat to come with us to Albany on a bus. We're going to have a big rally and a parade with marching bands. Maybe we can get the award-winning Tiger Band to come. That'd be great. But either way, you should come. And you should come there. You should raise your voices. You should get together in groups and get your neighbors to call the legislators. It matters. You should go and do lobby visits with them and accept no excuses. You should write letters to the editor this week. Get the students involved. This weekend in Albany, there was a great letter to the editor from a 7th grader in Albany. It's a great letter. You should make your voice heard, tell your story, fight back, and don't accept any excuses. Thanks for being here tonight.